Riley Creed was never supposed to be there. According to her orders, she was nothing more than an intelligence analyst assigned to observe a Navy SEAL reconnaissance mission in a remote mountain valley. Her job was simple: watch, take notes, and compile an after-action report. She wasn't there to fight. That was why nobody paid much attention to her. As the CH-47 Chinook descended toward the landing zone, the SEALs checked their weapons and equipment with practiced efficiency. Riley sat quietly near the rear ramp with a laptop and a notebook resting on her lap. At 32, she looked more like a librarian than a soldier. Brown hair pulled into a regulation bun, wire-rimmed glasses, and a calm expression that never seemed to change. One of the operators glanced in her direction and smirked.
Great.
Headquarters sent us a note-taker. The others chuckled. Riley didn't react. She had heard it all before. Minutes later, the team began climbing toward a ridge overlooking a valley dotted with caves. Intelligence reports suggested enemy fighters were using the caves as temporary staging areas. The mission was supposed to be routine reconnaissance, but the terrain immediately caught Riley's attention. As the team moved higher, she studied the landscape carefully. She watched dust devils spin across the valley floor. She tracked rising waves of heat shimmering above sun-baked rocks. She paid attention to every gust of wind moving through the narrow canyon. Most people saw mountains. Riley saw variables. When the first enemy fighters appeared near one of the cave entrances, the SEAL sniper team prepared to engage. The shot should have been easy. It missed. The sniper adjusted and fired again. Another miss. A second sniper team tried from a different angle.
Miss.
Nobody could understand what was happening. These were some of the most skilled marksmen in the military. Missing stationary targets at that distance was almost unheard of. Riley watched quietly through her binoculars. The valley itself was the problem. The intense heat created unstable thermal currents that twisted through the canyon in unpredictable patterns. Wind shifted direction constantly. The air wasn't behaving according to normal ballistic calculations. The enemy knew it. That was why they had chosen this location. Moments later, the first mortar round exploded below the American position. The second landed closer. The third sent fragments tearing through the ridge and wounded one of the operators. The team had walked directly into a carefully prepared ambush. Gunfire erupted from multiple positions hidden among the caves and rocks. Mortar crews adjusted their fire with alarming precision. Every attempt to move was met with suppressive fire. Chief Marcus Hale immediately called for air support. The response came back quickly. 18 minutes out. 18 minutes might as well have been a lifetime. The team was pinned down. Casualties were mounting. Ammunition was running low. Their snipers couldn't effectively return fire because the environment was disrupting every shot. Riley continued observing. She studied the enemy positions, the mortar crews, the machine gun nests, the spotters directing fire. She watched the flow of air moving through the valley and slowly began seeing patterns. Then she made a decision. Carefully setting her binoculars aside, she opened her pack and pulled out something no intelligence analyst should have possessed. A custom-built precision rifle. The nearest SEAL stared at her in disbelief. "Creed, where did you get that?" She didn't answer. Instead, she crawled toward a firing position near the edge of the ridge. Chief Hale followed. "Stand down," he ordered. "You're an analyst." Riley calmly checked the chamber. "With respect, Chief, I'm trying to keep your men alive." There was something in her voice that made him hesitate. Not arrogance. Not defiance.
Certainty.
The kind that comes from experience. She settled behind the rifle and looked through the scope. For everyone else, the valley was chaos. For Riley, it was a puzzle, and she knew how to solve it. She tracked heat distortion. She measured the timing of wind shifts. She waited for tiny windows of stability hidden between the turbulence. Then she squeezed the trigger. The suppressed shot was barely audible over the battle. 450 meters away, the enemy spotter directing mortar fire collapsed instantly. The operator watching through his scope froze. Did she just? Riley was already acquiring her next target. A machine gunner hidden near a cave entrance. One shot. One kill. A fighter maneuvering toward the American flank. Another shot. Another kill. An RPG team preparing to engage.
Gone.
A second mortar observer.
Down.
Every round landed exactly where it needed to. The operators stared in disbelief. Their own snipers had spent the last hour struggling against the valley's impossible conditions. Riley seemed to be using those same conditions as an advantage. She wasn't fighting the environment. She was reading it. Within minutes, the ambush began unraveling. Key leaders disappeared. Spotters stopped transmitting corrections. Specialists dropped one after another. Without coordination, the enemy's carefully constructed plans started falling apart. The mortar fire ceased. Suppressive fire weakened. Confusion spread through the opposing force. Then panic followed. The fighters who had been moving with discipline only minutes earlier were suddenly making mistakes.
Exposing themselves.
Breaking cover. Running. They're falling apart, Chief Hale said quietly. He wasn't watching the enemy. He was watching Riley. One final shot echoed across the valley. The enemy commander dropped where he stood. The battle was over. The surviving fighters retreated into the mountains. For the first time in nearly 20 minutes, silence returned. Riley lowered the rifle and switched on the safety. Her breathing never changed. Her hands never shook. She looked as calm as someone finishing paperwork. Chief Hale crawled beside her. "Who are you?" he asked. Riley pulled out her notebook. "Enemy ambush neutralized. Recommend immediate extraction." "That's not what I asked." For a moment she looked directly at him. "Analyst," she replied. "Nothing more." The quick reaction force arrived shortly afterward. The wounded were evacuated. The team returned to base. Officially, the after-action report was straightforward. The SEAL team encountered unexpected resistance. The team successfully defended its position. Enemy forces were neutralized. Extraction completed. Staff Sergeant Riley Creed provided valuable intelligence support. That was all. The report never mentioned the 11 enemy fighters she eliminated. It never mentioned the mortar crews she silenced. It never mentioned the fact that she had single-handedly shattered an ambush designed to destroy an elite special operations team. When Chief Hale later requested access to her personnel records, he discovered most of the file was classified far beyond his clearance level. A few days later, Riley received new orders. No explanation. No ceremony. No recognition. Just another assignment. Before leaving, she met Hale near the perimeter fence. "My men are alive because of you," he said. Riley offered a faint smile.
No.
"They're alive because they stayed disciplined when everything went wrong." "That's your answer?" "It's the only one that matters." The next morning, she boarded a transport aircraft and disappeared toward another mission in another country. The SEALs watched her leave with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. One of them mounted a spent casing from her rifle inside the team room. Beneath it, someone engraved a single word: respect. Not because she demanded it. Not because she sought recognition. Because she earned it. The lesson stayed with them for years. The most dangerous person in the room isn't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the quiet individual sitting in the corner with a notebook, watching, listening, waiting. And when the moment comes, they act. By then, it's usually too late to realize who they really are.